So when we were working the code for the first JavaScript program, and I'm gonna make some undos right here so you can see better. You can see that we have this let name equals to a prompt. Here we're creating a variable, and the value of this variable is what the user is typing inside this prompt window. So there are three ways to create variables in JavaScript. It's var, let, and const. Basically, in the latest versions of JavaScript, var is already deprecated. You have to use only let and const. But I'm gonna cover var in this video and also in the scope of the values. So we're gonna start with var. We're gonna add a variable. You can create a variable using var, just by adding var space. Then you give a name. A name in a variable can contain letters, numbers, or underscores. So for example, you can give the name learning equals to JavaScript. And you can send this value to the console log learning, and save this, and it's going to print JavaScript in the console. So there are some restrictions when you are declaring your variables. So for example, a variable called days99 is going to work equal to 99, something like that. Console.log days99. Save this, you can see it's printing 99. But for example, let's say that you add something like 99 days, or any variable starting with a number is going to cause some errors. So for example, let's say that I want to send this to the console. So you can see that we have invalid or unexpected token. A variable can contain numbers, but it cannot start with a number, so that's important. Also, for example, let's add var underscore products, and I'm gonna send to the console. And let's add something like equal true. And I'm gonna copy this and paste right here. You can see this is working. A variable can start with an underscore. And also, for example, you can add something like products and underscore equals to 10. This will also work. But in my opinion, writing the variables like this can be a little confusing. So we can remove this. So you can see here on the top we have this learning equals to JavaScript, and we have JavaScript inside single quotes. For example, let's say that you add something like var learning. You can also add JavaScript with double quotes like that, and it will work just fine. But something that you cannot do is to add single quotes at the beginning, then double quotes at the end. That will cause you some errors. You can see that we have invalid or unexpected token. So if you start with single quotes, finish your strings with single quotes. If you decide to start with double quotes, finish this with double quotes, but never mix your quotes like this. So for example, there are some times when you are working with variables and the name contains more than one word. For example, variables with 2 or more words. There are some ways that is recommended to write these variables. So for example, you can add something like var first name. This is the recommended way. I'm gonna add Juan Pablo in this case. So this is known as camel case, and this is the more standard way of writing variables in JavaScript. You can see that this n is with uppercase. So let's continue working. There is another way. You can add, for example, first underscore name and create that variable. This way is known as underscore, but this is not really common in JavaScript. We're going to add another one. First in uppercase, the n of name in uppercase also, and I'm gonna add my name. This is known as Pascal case, but it's not really common also in JavaScript. This one, camel case, is more common in JavaScript, and we're gonna write all the code using this way of writing variables. So when you create a variable with these values inside quotes, this is a string, but a variable can contain different data types. So for example, I'm going to add var learning equals to JavaScript, and we're gonna send this value to the console. This is going to be the same that we have before, but you can also create variables that hold numbers. For example, var age equals 20. In this case, you can see that you don't have to add the quotes. The numbers doesn't require the quotes, but of course you can add this like this. But this is going to be a string. We're gonna check data types in upcoming videos. And you can send this variable to the console also. Age is like this, and you can see we have 20 right here. You can also, for example, add another one called job. You can add this to true. This is going to be a boolean. Job like this is going to be true. So you can, your variables can contain strings, booleans, number, arrays, objects, functions, several different data types and primitives that we have in JavaScript. And of course, as I said before, we're gonna see data types in full detail in upcoming videos. I'm gonna remove this. You can also start a variable without any value. For example, var learning, and you can add console.log learning. And this is going to print undefined because the variable exists, but it doesn't contain any values, and it's going to print undefined. But for example, let's say that in the process or in the execution of the program, this value is, and it's going to be equal, for example, to JavaScript. You can save and reload. You can see it's going to be JavaScript. So you can also start the variables like this without any values, and then you can add the value when you are executing the program. So before we finish, I'm gonna show you how you can start multiple variables. So for example, you can see, I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna show you something. You can add, for example, var learning equals to JavaScript. And for example, you can add a comma right here, and instead of adding again var name, for example, Juan, you can skip this var, and right here you add only a comma. So this way you are creating two different variables, but you don't have to add var again. You only have to add this comma. So you can copy this and paste and save this and reload. You can see we have JavaScript, and we have also the name right here. And following the previous example, you can, for example, start these variables without any values like this, and it's going to create two different variables. Just in case that you see the syntax in any example on the internet, and these variables are, or this is the way you can create multiple variables. You can add another one, for example, age. So right here we have three different variables, and of course none of these has any value. You can add the value right after. You can add learning, JavaScript, and name, Juan, and you can add your age, for example, and save this. And we're missing the age like this, and it's going to print the three values. So you can also use this syntax to create multiple variables with or without any values when you create the variables. So one of the main problems using var is that you can add, for example, something like var learning equals to a modern JavaScript and send this value to the console log learning. This is going to work fine. But for example, if you add var learning again and you add JavaScript, and it's going to print the last value. And normally this is not exactly a good practice, because you can see we're creating two different variables with the same name. And in the next video, we're gonna see the let keyword, which is going to be the new way that you can create variables. In JavaScript, var is deprecated in the newest versions of modern JavaScript. So let's see let and const in the next videos.